Today on Smackey's Garage, we're going to be installing an export brace on our 1969 Mustang. We're going to be addressing one of the major issues that these cars have that are unibody style. It's chassis flex or unibody flex. On my car, we're going to take a look at some things that, where it's flexed over the years and kind of what I need to do about it. But we're also going to install this export brace from Total Control Products to help with some of that chassis flex. So if you have a Mustang like this, you probably recognize this. This is a stock export bar. This is what I'm having issues with and why we're installing what we're installing today. Now, if you're familiar with these cars, you know that over the years, it's a unibody. If you let it sit without an engine in it, even with an engine in it, and you don't have a Monte Carlo bar in the car like this, there's a risk that your inner fenders are gonna collapse in. And that's what happened here on this car. So it's been sitting around for a long time. It didn't have the export brace on it, didn't have a Monte Carlo bar on it. And what happens over time is each one of the inner fenders tips and falls in. Now, there are ways to fix this. A lot of it does require either unbolting the engine, pushing on it. To get this to work right in my car, I think I'd have to actually take the engine out, take some measurements and push on either side of the inner fenders to get them to spread a little bit. And that's a project that I do want to do, but not quite yet. And that's where we're going to see if we can get this TCP bar to fit. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drop this in place just so we can take a look at what the issue is. Now put into place, you can see the bar is pretty far off from where that needs to be on both sides. So this side and then this side here. Now this is the box that the new one came in. As you can see, it's much smaller because it's a completely different design. I bought this from CJ Pony Parts. It's a TCP export brace. Now, as I go ahead and install this, I know that I probably should get this fixed first and get everything pushed out, but it's the beginning of the season and it feels like it's a project that's more suited for winter when I have the car apart, because there's a lot more that I want to do to the car that, I want to take the engine out so I can clean the engine bay, so I can put a new flywheel on it, because I think the flywheel's missing a tooth or two. I want to take the transmission out. I want to rebuild the transmission. So there's a lot of projects that I want to do, but being March here in New England, the car season's just about to start. And then by taking everything that deep apart, I probably won't get to use it for another few months. And that's not something I want. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take care of this now, see if this works for this year. Then this winter, I'll take it apart. We'll see if I can get it straightened away, and I'll do a lot of work in the engine bay. So we'll see, but let's go ahead. Let's see if we can get this installed and if it actually fits. So here are all the parts that it comes with. These are the two plates that go on the top of the shock tower. Here are the arms that are going to go back from the shock tower to the back firewall. And then it's going to have these on either end, so allowing it to pivot and rotate some. So each one of these is going to go in to this location here. So there is some adjustability for each one of these in and out. I just need to figure out what's the right length for them. So it's going to go one here and one here. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this mounted on the car. I think, so the way it's going to go, these 4 bolts in, and then we're also going to have to drill a bolt hole through the firewall, which is going to go through here and into the car. All right, now the first step is going to get these on. So I'm going to hope all these are lined up correctly. I see something that's actually bolted to one of them, so I need to remove that, but go ahead. Now, I already found problem number 1, and it's going to take a lot more work to get this done. A lot more than I expected. So let's take a look and see what I need to do. Now, looking at the firewall here, so you can see where the bracket goes. It actually goes underneath there, and you can see that hose coming out for the heater that's following from there all the way to right under there. Now, because that is there, the bracket doesn't fit. So I need to figure something else out. I think that hose probably needs to get moved from up here to down here, but I'll have to look at some pictures of other cars online. And to get this right, I'm also gonna have to rerun those 2 wires. This one goes to the battery for the radio, and the other one is the oxygen sensor. So I need to figure out if I can disconnect that in there, but after that's done, I should be okay. All right, so looking at a bunch of different pictures of Mustangs online and their firewalls, this hole doesn't exist in anyone else's Mustang, so I just need to figure out a way to fix it and make everything work, because right now that's not in the correct location. All I know is For now, I need to figure out how to get the hose routed through the right hole and then everything put back together. So I'm not going to share the full tear apart of the dash, but I'll just share a few little tidbits of it so you can see what I had to go through to get kind of this sorted out. But project, no matter how small it is, turn it into something bigger one more time. In here, if you look in the back, you can see I should have okay access to it. So from that, and then the hole's directly underneath it. So I should be able to adjust it and not need as long of a tube. I can cut it up front, but with that, I should be able to just do this pretty quickly. Now for this project, if you ask me what the last thing I think I would have been doing would have been, it would have been draining the coolant and taking the heater core connections off. But, you know, it needs to be done to get this together. So I'm running into issues back here and you can kind of see why. So I have that giant hole back there that we pulled the wires out of, but there's also another hole on this other side, which is where all my sensor wires come through. So right there. So rather than completely redo all this, I mean, we already moved the line for the hose, which is going to be right there now. Rather than go ahead and redo everything up top and find another place for those wires, I'm actually just going to modify the bracket. Now I feel comfortable doing this because if I look at this bracket and compare it to the original bracket didn't have this piece back here. I'm going to leave this center bolt so there's still some structure back there to provide support, but I'm going to get rid of this bolt here and this bolt here because, you know, if it's just adding more rigidity, more support, I'm not really tracking the car. It is definitely going to be better by having just one bolt in here than nothing like it was on the original. So the original one just had this covered, not this bracket back here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mill off this edge here and make everything fit well. So the goal was to make it look good from this angle. I think we did that. So everything's even. I pretty much eyeballed it. So it's close enough for what I want to do with it. All right, everything fits now. Now, while installing that, I realized it pulled everything flat. So that part of the cowl was probably previously bowed, but now it's flat there and it's pretty much where it needs to be. So I can go ahead, I can drill that hole underneath there to put a nut and a washer on the other side. So I'll probably use part of that big bracket that they gave us. So this piece right here, just to get a little extra reinforcement, because if it's just a nut, it's just gonna flex and there isn't much meat there. So by putting this in, or at least part of this, it'll provide a lot more support. And here's the bracket that I made for it that we're going to put in the car and behind the dash. So now that we have that bracket on, I'm going to go ahead and put these on. To do this, I'm going to take the shock out and then I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to drop this underneath the shock tower and put everything back together. Now with this, I would highly, highly recommend getting like different studs that go up into here, up into this nut, and then maybe losing this for a lock washer. You can see with this plate installed, it's not even going up to the nylon in this nut. So that's something that definitely needs to be watched out for and something that will need to be replaced. So the reason why I'm not changing these right now is because I have new coilovers that are going in the car next week. And with that, doesn't make any sense for me to buy new bolts until I get that hardware in so I can see what's really the right length I need for the car. All right, so I have these parts here that I'm putting together. There's a lock nut on either side. One side is a left-hand thread, one side is a right-hand thread. So you can spread it if you need to while it's in the car. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add anti-seize to both sides of these, put them pretty much all the way in, leave the lock nuts loose, and then we're gonna go ahead and try to fit them into the car. I think one of the important things when you do this is to use anti-seize on both threads. Okay, so we're installed, but you can see how close this is getting to where my PCV system goes. So I need to figure something out there. You know, I'm probably gonna take the breather from that side and move it over to here. I could also see what would happen if I ran this bar, so from here onto the top over there. I don't think it would change too much. I guess I would load it in a different position. Probably not ideal, but you know, I can play around with a few things first. So with these big block cars, they take up a lot of the engine bay, and as you can see, this is not fitting. Can't make it work with the PCV system that I have. Doesn't really fit well with a breather, but I can probably make it work if I put it on the top. But either way, it's still contacting that breather. So I need to find some other solution. So I need to go look for a low profile PCV system as well as a low profile breather before I complete this. Now, these are some of the problems that you see when you're working on a big block car, and things are tight in there. All right, so I did some searching online and I found a PCV system that will work. So apparently the original style for this car didn't have that breather with a PCV on the elbow on it. It was just in the car and in the valve cover like this. So this PCV valve right here will stick into the valve cover through this grommet here, and then it'll just stick out. I'll go ahead and put it in the car, we'll take a look, and then we'll finish getting this thing back together. You can see there's definitely enough room now for this to clear, but it's barely any. I guess if I really need to, I can put another washer under here and just lift this up some, but let's see if everything fits like this. So it's been a multi-week project, but I finally got the export brace fully installed. Still some work to do. I gotta button up the heating system again and make sure that there's no coolant leaks, but that's a project for another day. Now, in the next few weeks, we're gonna get this car outside. We're gonna see how well it does on the road with these new mods. So don't forget to subscribe so you get notifications when that video drops. Thanks for tuning in this week on Smackey's Garage. I'll see you next time.